Thanks so much, everybody. It's looking good in the room over there in Baha'i. I wish I could be there with you, but I'm loving the virtual space. So sometimes it gets a bit difficult, although I love people to come in. I have to do, better at that. But thank you so much for inviting us. And really, I'm like so excited because, as you said, we just came from the consultation, youth consultation for the new UN office, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And, that's the type of interaction and engagement I personally, as a staff member, would like to see more and more of at the UN. So as Lillian said, I'm Hawa Diallo from the Civil Society Unit. I've been fortunate to really work in many spaces at the UN, at the headquarters, in the field, in peacekeeping operations. But, the really kind of most gratifying work I've had has been really working with young people, working with women's organizations, really in vulnerable situations in the urban context when I was in UN Habitat, and now in the Civil Society Unit in the Department of Global Communications. People come from all around the world. And, I was looking at my talking points and, I was just so excited by today, and I have so many things going in my head, but I don't want to repeat myself because I've heard some really awesome suggestions straight from the mouth of young people in terms of what does engagement mean? What should the UN office look like? So I'm going to save a bit of that for when we go into the working rooms. And I kept thinking about, really what is this event about today? Because, it says to talk about spaces at the UN, for engagement, and how would you reconfigure that? And then for me, I'm saying, what does spaces mean? Are we talking about formal structures at the UN only? Because I think you need to think about external structures to the UN, internal structures to the UN, structures within your own organizations. To me, talking to my mom is a space. So for me, I think about spaces or engagement in a loosely, like broad kind of person-to-person definition. So that if I pick up the phone and I'm speaking to a young person, I mentor a lot of people, what comes out of my mouth in terms of the UN, what they can do, what are their potentials, their capacities, what I can learn from them means a lot also. That's an important space I think that we tend to just forget about. Or at the dinner table, I'm always excited to come from something, or that meeting I had today with many of you. I'm sure I'll be talking about it forever for everybody I meet, either at the dinner table, on a phone conversation, on WhatsApp, or maybe in the next meeting that I go to. And for me, it's important that I stay true to what I heard directly from the horse's mouth, not putting in my own UNEs or my own interpretation, but directly hearing what young people are saying and wanting. Because I believe that some of the spaces that we have within the UN, young people are invisible. That, we always say, we represent the world, but I always ask myself, who really am I targeting? And really, who really am I impacting? Because many of us go to speaking engagements or events and are shocked when people say, oh, I've never heard about the SDGs before. Or, what's the UN? Of course. We don't have the ability to reach everybody. So we need to make sure that our spaces, if they're internal in the UN, whether it's the high level political forum that's taking place right now, is connected to what's happening on the ground. So if it's internal structures of the UN, we have to see how we, connect to our regional offices, whether it's the Economic Commission of Africa or the one ESQA or ESCAP in Thailand or Lebanon, and how the messaging of the UN is locally adapted. And for me, that means context and it means language. I don't know who knows that. I think a couple of days ago, we finally have International Day of Kiswahili. Habari, everybody. I mean, we should be in UN spaces on the local level, connecting on the languages. I'm waiting for the day when the UN is going to have International Mende Day from Sierra Leone. And the spaces that we have at the UN, they need to be relevant to what's happening to people's lives. Because I can go in and talk about all the big structures, or even if I am on the ground and I'm talking about, let's say, I don't know if they still have the UNDAF structures in the national frameworks of policymaking and on UN issues. But if you are in my mom's village in Pujon and you don't have any food to eat, I don't know how you're going to be talking about our common agenda. So the spaces have to be relevant and meet the immediate needs of people. If I'm hungry, I don't care about human rights. This is the reality. I'm not going to be thinking about the environment. It could be in the back of my head. But how are these spaces, again, meeting those immediate needs of people? Now, in these spaces, we have to listen. Our common agenda says that we're going to listen to young people. But then I had a young person the other day tell me, so when you're finished listening, what are you going to do? And what does listen mean? In these spaces, are we listening, and are we going beyond listening and really going into action? And I'm not talking action planning, but action on the ground. And is that action, again, as I said, relevant to what's happening in the spaces or the environments that we are trying to, to connect to or trying to impact? And I think something I heard a lot about in the consultation we just came from in the youth office is resources. A lot of times we say, do this, do that. As NGOs, as young people, it's your responsibility. You're awesome, you're brilliant. Show me the money. How are you as young people, gonna get these things done? Yes, we can rely on government, and government needs to show the money too, but international organizations must follow suit. Then again, I always say, in these spaces, regardless of what it is, you as young people must be accountable. It's not up to Hawa Diallo, it's not up to Jayatma, it's not up to the Secretary General, and it's not only up to your government. You as a young person, how are you, I guess, maybe looking at your local resources, existing resources in your environment? How are you cooperating? You said something, the cooperation, not just intergenerationally. I find sometimes that young people across NGO groups do not cooperate. Many more are doing that, and this event being put together is a good example. We have a cross-section of young groups and networks that are bringing us together, but don't hog up the information. Don't hog up the resources that you have. How do you find out something, and how do you share with other people so that it's a collective action in terms of how even the United Nations is? Many voices is better, I think, than one. So for me, these are just some of the things that come to my head. And I think where we are right now, you have a lot of people who are part of the UN. I don't know who has never been in a UN meeting here in this session. So, I could rattle off that there are spaces, HLPF, we just came from the Ocean Conference in Portugal. There was a youth forum there. We had, the transport conference that happened. We have the COPs, we have the one coming up in Egypt. All of these have youth spaces that you can engage in. But I always say, why wait for the UN? We are only one lonely person. What are you doing in your neighborhood, in your neck of the woods? Are you doing something in school? Are you doing something on your block? Are you doing something in your family? The UN does a lot, but it should not be your savior. You should collaborate with us, but you should be independently developing awesome, and I know many people do that already, but awesome ideas and projects that you bring to your community, to your neighborhood, to your government, and bring to the UN at the global level. Do not feel as if you have to be as beautiful as the Baha'i office is at this table here alone, or find yourself in conference room 4 or in the General Assembly. Think of what you can impact and what you can trailblaze on your street, on your block, in your neighborhood, in your community. I want to thank you very much. I could go in for days about this because I am passionate and I love, these type of discussions. I will leave more for the working room. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to hear what everybody else has to say.